Only 10% of leadership programs deliver meaningful or measurable results. The system itself appears, according to industry data, is a failed system.
What a lot of training programs do, they are often one-off, and that's not what we should be doing with some of our clients. It's about building a pathway for those individuals, setting KPIs, but more importantly then going back 1, 2 or 3 months later and measuring the impact and effectiveness.
As a leader in certain fields in industry, me going to attend a 2-hour session, I probably think it's a waste of time.
But they're not leaders. They're not good at managing people. If you take that same individual without the training to be a leader, that's why projects can fail.
The biggest farce in the industry is learning and development right now. And there's billions of dollars of budget that is put on it. But if you actually look into these stats, those dollars, those numbers are not converting.
As we touched on earlier, this is about a pathway, the journey that these people need to go on. In 2 hours, I can update you and inform you about things so you have a basic understanding.
Welcome to the Reframe Lab, where conversations shape perspectives. Our mission and aim is to uncover hidden aspects that are shaping our societies and having an influence on our businesses. Today is a very special episode because I, along with my colleague Roger, we both are guests. And we're really looking forward to Dr. Malak taking us through as the host on this show.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Imran. So we're discussing leadership development. It's well over $300 billion industry. It's a very, very large industry. And yet when we look at the data, so according to Forbes, only 10% of leadership programs deliver meaningful or measurable results. And 75% of organizations rate their own leadership as programs that are very ineffective. So the system itself appears, according to industry data, the system is a failed system. And I think today, if we can discuss, are your training programs any different than the over 75% or 80% of the failed programs already that are existing?
Well, thanks, Malik. Good afternoon, both of you, and thank you for the invitation, Imran. I'm Dr. Roger Griffiths. I'm the Business Development Manager for the University of Birmingham. I've been in the region 15 years, originally in Qatar for 7 and in Dubai for the last 8, and joined the University of Birmingham 3.5 years ago. I used to teach, so I understand it from both the academic perspective and very much from a commercial perspective. I was a design manager for a number of years for some big international companies. So I bring that experience with me. Some very scary figures there when you talk about the failure rates of some of the training programs. For me, some of the key things that we do at the university is benchmarking and contextualizing some of the training programs. And what a lot of training programs do, they are often one-off. And that's not what we should be doing with some of our clients. It's about building a pathway for those individuals, benchmarking, so understanding their level of competency when we start the training program, setting KPIs, but more importantly, then going back 1, 2 or 3 months later and measuring the impact and effectiveness that those people on our training courses have had.
And how do you know that they're effective?
Well, we set KPIs. I mean, the competency testing that we do beforehand. So we ask questions.
Who sets the KPIs? Is it the industry or the university?
With the client.
Always
with the client. So we've done many, many training courses for certainly the government sector here. So we understand the competency level at particular levels of operation. So you have people where we'll do awareness training programs, programs for operators, people who use the coding, for example, people who manage those people, and then C-suite. So you'll need to set different KPIs around awareness and their application of their knowledge to their particular organization.
And so if you just can take us through it. So I'm an executive. I take part in your program. How many days is the program?
Any days, they're all tailored. So it could be the awareness programs can be simply a 2-hour long session, which we can do online. Okay, let's start with that then.
So awareness in what?
So awareness of all aspects of AI, the implications of AI and the transformation within a company, and particularly within the UAE, the expectations of the nation, because they have a strategy which is around digital transformation. So there are high-level benchmarks that people are expected to attain over the next few years.
So, I'm questioning this because a 2-hour session, I'm an executive, and you're expecting me to become aware of what the entire AI transformation of what a company, and how effective even is that? I mean, for me as a leader in certain fields in industry, me going to attend a 2-hour session, first of all, I probably think it's a waste of time.
Yes.
Am I actually getting something out of it? Is my company going to get something out of me going through this 2-hour session? I mean, realistically,
so
how can I be transformed? Am I really transformed?
Within 2 hours, there's a level of transformation that we can do. Give me 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, and we can see a huge difference in people's ability and understanding of what AI can mean across the industry and within their own company.
So on average, what is the duration of your training programs?
On average, probably 3 days to 4 days. So a working week is what most people can afford.
Right. And so who enters these programs? If we can kind of focus on the executive leadership programs.
Yeah.
And you find, how do you measure successful outcome? Is it through feedback from the participants?
Feedback, questionnaires, not just with the individuals who undertake the training themselves, but also with the people around them to look at the effectiveness. Who work with those people on the courses. And you can measure impact on how a particular project within the company has progressed. Most projects, and we can touch on lots of areas around leadership and AI here, AI is often misunderstood. I don't claim to know everything about artificial intelligence, but the aims and objectives of AI around digital transformation within the company and across the country, it's about innovation and it's about efficiency, making things quicker, using that data to give them insights about how the company's operating and how they can respond to that. The challenge with a lot of people is, I remember the Lawrence Peter book from 1969, The Peters Rule, people being elevated to their level of incompetency. That's not saying these people are not competent, but it's about some people are taken out of roles, but they're not leaders. They're not good at managing people. They might be competent and skillful, but if you take that same individual without the training to be a leader, understanding that individual and the type of leader that they can become, that's why projects can fail. And I think recent figures, between 85 and 90% of projects that are applied within organizations, both public and private sector, fail.
They fail because the leader hasn't gone through a 2-day course.
Several.
But do you see? Because you're laughing, but that's the reality of. That's why only 10% of leadership programs seem to be meaningful, because it doesn't really add up. You know, a leader goes through this program, a workshop, a 1 or 2 day program. And then magically turns out at the end completely transformed.
Not at all. No, so as we touched on earlier, this is about a pathway, the journey that these people need to go on. Right. In 2 hours, I can update you and inform you about things so you have a basic understanding. But that doesn't mean you can take that knowledge away and apply it. All of our programs and the organizations that we work with is about planning. Yes, we'll do an introduction for those people that need it. And those are usually online and anybody from the organization can tune in. But we'll always say this has to be part of a long-term collaboration with that organization to upskill everybody, regardless of where they are in that organization.
And so do you take into account the organization itself, not just the individual? Perhaps the individual potentially is a very good leader, but it's the architecture, it's the infrastructure of the organization that itself that is the barrier, not the actual individual.
So most of those failures that you talk about are partly the individual, because they're not ready and they don't understand and they don't have those leadership qualities. The other part of the failure is organizational, that they're culturally not ready, the infrastructure is not ready, and they haven't set clear objectives of where digital transformation can take that organization into the future.
Imran, so you are the CEO of London Strategy Centre, And you argue that your executive programs, you claim your executive programs are very different. You do not focus, you don't believe in focusing on the framework or the theory. And you instead, you believe it's the know-how to develop capability, an individual's capability to be able to, the individual is able to make the right judgment under pressure, to perform in unpredictable environments. Now, how do you do that? Because it's the same question as I asked Roger. Over a period of 2-3 day workshops, how realistic is that? Are you really going to transform that individual? And what is it that you're teaching them that no other organization is teaching them?
That's a very good question, Malak. Before I answer it, I have spent 15 years of my career in executive development. Prior to executive development, I was in the military. So my background is aviation in military. And rest of my life has been spent with universities, with working with corporate clients, mostly on the development programs rather than on MBAs or degree oriented programs. I have been delivering on degree award bearing programs as well, but 90% of my work has been with corporates in corporate development. And over the years, I have seen thousands of RFPs that come through from organizations that we are then responding to in the same style that Roger would respond back to a RFP, which is a request that's coming from an organization to come and deliver a program. And I think the real challenge starts from when you have received that request, because how those requests are generated, it's a finger in the air. Mm-hmm. Organization has no idea that what their real needs are. The real needs are usually determined based on competency analysis. What organizations would do, they would do job mapping. Good organizations, not every organization does it. Very top tier organizations would do a thorough study of the jobs, of the roles that each individual has, and then they would do the competency mapping. They would try and understand what the individual competencies are, and then they would do an approach called gap spotting. They will start plugging the gaps between job and the competencies that the individual has. Based on that, very good organizations would try and convert it into an RFP and send them over. But what really happens is that where the organization has missed out is the element of what are the real needs of the organization. That is not studied. They have no idea of what is it that they're trying to fix. What they're doing is they're doing a alignment activity between the job and the individual's competencies. That would not help the needle to move, and that's where your stats are coming. Unfortunately, traditionally, this is how the organizations have been operating. I think the biggest farce in the industry is learning and development right now. Mm. And there's billions of dollars of budget that is put on it, but if you actually look into the stats, those dollars, those numbers are not converting. Mm. Less than 10% of programs help you move the dial. Mm. And the move the dial would not happen over 2 days or 2 hours. Is actually structural understanding of what is the problem that you're trying to solve with the organization.
So what is it that you do?
So that is where we start competing with the consulting firms as well, because the market starts getting very mixed. You may ask, look, are you a development company or a university training provider or consulting firm? Because now what we have over here is a mishmash. Everyone is playing in this pool, and that's where consulting is usually taking the majority of the market. Again, that is wrong, because consultants step in and they do the task for you. And we call it a blinkered strategy. Organizational people would not buy it from you if you're a consultant. They want to do it themselves. So what we do is we step in and we hold hands of the executives. We do a thorough needs assessment, understanding what the needs are. And then we work with partners like Birmingham University. And we say, look, this is the needs framework. We want to now design a program that is solving this exact area. And then we work with the executives to co-facilitate something or co-develop something that they can then plug into the organization and take it further.
Thank you. So immediately when you mentioned universities, a university, I mean, the first thing that it signals is academia. It signals models, frameworks, theories opposite to what you what you're arguing not to include. So what is it that the universities do?
That's
Well,
a very,
can I
very
answer
good
that one?
question. Please.
So in this region, I think university to date have been misunderstood.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting with a large organization here, and they thought we just taught.
Yeah.
We delivered undergraduate and postgraduate programs. So all of that background noise and competency that we have as a university. Last year, we were 125 years old. Behind me, there are 5 colleges covering every discipline. Within those 5 colleges, we have 26 schools full of hundreds of academics, 8,000 academics altogether, and 110 or more research centers or institutes managing, at the last count, 1.2 billion dirhams of research every year.
All fundamentally theory-based.
No, applied theory and demonstrating impact. That's what we need to do. Yeah. The research assessment framework, that's a 5-year quinquennial review of the universities, is always about the impact the university has, particularly here as we have a campus here in Dubai, Dubai International Academic City. It's about the impact within that sort of civic mission that we have as a Russell Group university. Yeah. So we have to be able to demonstrate that. Yes. So that benchmarking that we need to be able to do, and then deliver the programs, whether they're academic or executive training, and then being able to measure the impact that we have afterwards. You have to put those KPIs in the first place. So universities develop from a research perspective. Most of the intellectual property, certainly in the UK, as a classic, 85% of IP comes out of collaboration with universities. So once the organizations here understand how universities operate, and we're a world-class university, I think we're QS ranking is number 76 currently, with ambitions to be in the top 50 in the world. We have a huge amount of competency and experience with academics at the vanguard, challenging boundaries, current concepts of how leadership is taught. So academia and collaboration with academia is crucial. And I think the in-country value concept, that's something here, particularly in the UAE, is keep that money in country. There's been a past history of huge sums of money going out to consultants. Consultants come in, leave a report, disappear, and the impact is not tangible afterwards.
Can I add to what Roger is saying? You may ask that with a university like Birmingham, what is the need for London Strategy Centre then to come in, because it is a self-sufficient capability. If you look at these stats, just pick up the FT 100 universities, Financial Times top 100 ranked universities. Amongst them, only 64 universities have executive education centers. Not every university offers executive development. Amongst 64, if you start looking and unpacking those universities, you'll find a pattern which is very surprising. And the pattern is that all the academics do not deliver executive development. Academics are usually hired for their research base. And if they usually say in academia, you know it very well, Malak, that you publish or perish. Yeah. So your performance is evaluated on how much you're doing research. And you already have enough pressure on you to put your research out. You usually, as a career-oriented academic, are not interested in executive development programs. So because of this, majority of the programs fall out to training companies, and there it goes significantly wrong, because training is just churning the wheel of a few tools without evidence base. The real thing which is creating value here is collaborations like Birmingham and London Strategy Centre, because this gives us a space, our experts who have really had the battle scars and who understand, who are the practitioners, but they're not going in as trainers. They are going in with evidence-based frameworks coming from a university, and it's that true collaboration between the two institutions which creates the capability that can offer capability development for organizations. Doing it alone on either end would not be possible. It would be a flawed kind of an activity. So we cannot claim ourselves all alone that we have the full capability, we can step in and we can do everything for you. It is actually a combination that creates true value. And if someone is putting loads of dollars out there, not looking out for this kind of collaboration or value add, then that's where those numbers that you're seeing.
And that collaboration is crucial, isn't it? How we can complement
Absolutely.
one another in those particular skills. Some academics, yes, there's a focus on research, but that research is crucial to inform in what we deliver, not just in the curriculum, but also in our executive education.
So do you differentiate between a 2-hour workshop and a 2-day workshop? Are the outcomes different? Are the participants different?
Let me answer it differently. So usually programs, especially training programs, claim that if you come onto a program, they would help you change the behavior.
Yeah.
So it's a behavioral change. And to be honest, if you sit here and ask yourself, in 2 hours, would you really be able to change the behavior? That's not true. I can't even change your thinking, let alone your behavior. How would we do that? There is a research by Kim and Mobron from INSEAD. And that research, their main research, they're known for blue ocean strategy. But later on, they wrote blue ocean leadership. And blue ocean leadership is, how do you change behaviors by looking into acts and activities? See, you as an executive are performing certain acts and activities as part of your day job. If I have an insight of what your acts and activities are, I cannot change your behavior, but I can have an influence on the acts and activities. So if I connect how you're operating in your day and what requirements are for the organization, what are the needs of the organization, and if I can amend your acts and activities, I have made a contribution to the change. So we work on changing the acts and activities. But it is where Roger is saying you have to very clearly define the KPIs. You have to work in partnership with organizations. Otherwise, that change would not happen.
And culturally, you can go back to some well-established assessments, particularly on the psychological side of things. Probably, I'll give away my age now, 40 years or more, I did some Myers-Briggs assessment, psychological assessment. And that very clearly determined the sort of core values and competencies that I had and steered me in my own career and education. I had a fairly good idea of what I was good at. The other one I found really beneficial was the Meredith-Belbin team role inventory.
Oh, Belbin, yes.
Right,
but
so,
these are all old, very old assessments. Has the world changed? Have we culturally changed? Have we changed as humans?
The world has changed, but people don't change. Right? I know that I would not probably make a good leader. I'm probably a good follower, just behind that sort of leader.
So why not go through one of your training programs?
Myself?
Yes, and become a because that is what everyone is claiming with these programs.
There's misconception here.
This is a very important point, because you have just said you know that you are probably not a good leader. But training programs are claiming, and this is where these, $366 billion a year goes to. They're claiming that they can transform individuals into leaders.
Can I come in here? So what traditionally happens, Malak, and this has continued to happen, is that majority of these training programs have been designed on traditional assessment tools, as Roger is mentioning. So it is competency mapping, all those Myers-Briggs, Belbin roles, all these are competency mapping. This is individual. Required, very necessary, and they do help. They do not move the dial inside the organization like where you challenge Roger. Where we come in from is what are you doing to understand what are the needs of the organization? The definition of leadership, our definition of leadership is a response to a challenge. If you have not really understood what the challenge is, how would you create that response? You would always remain a follower. So we do a sense checking system. We call it our CT scan. Just like you go to a doctor and you do a CT scan, we do organizational CT scans. We perform capability transformation scans on the organization, helping us identify, and we use agentic AI platforms to do that. We can, with precision, identify what the gaps are, and we can also tell to the organization that if you solve this gap, you'll be able to transform this much ROI. So it is very specific, very niche, very targeted, and right to the point. It's a bullseye. With the capability that artificial intelligence is unleashing, I don't think many organizations are operating at that level where this partnership with Birmingham University, we are operating. We can go through that scanning process and help you transform into a leader, because then you know what your challenge is. and you can create a response to that challenge.
So I want to take this discussion and look at it from a different angle. So what we do know is that industry and leaders in industry or companies don't really like entrepreneurial thinking. They may claim they support innovation and innovators, but we know entrepreneurs don't like to stick to the rules. They don't like to listen to be told what to do. So it's actually they're very difficult individuals to even line manage. And so in your experience, and if we can kind of open this discussion, do you think if you were to identify the problem with the industry or a company is actually you need to bring in more entrepreneurial thinking, more innovative people to lead the organization. In your experience, have you found resistance?
If I reiterate your question, you're asking that more innovative leaders inside organizations are not taken really well by the organization because organization works in structures and these kind of leaders are defining the logic. And that is very true. Why does this usually happen? There are two most important functions that an organization has to follow, and that is alignment and engagement. You see, an organization is a big body. Your brain has to give the signal and the hand would move. So it's not so simple when you look at an organization which is 1,000 people, or in our cases, we have clients with 28,000 people. Mm-hmm. So how do you create alignment and engagement in 28,000 people? One disruptor can destroy everything. So if you have that kind of a person who is thinking all the time out of the box,
and you said you just defined that person as a disruptor. Do you see
it is disruption.
It's not an innovator. You yourself has identified that person as a disruptor.
In the system,
in a negative term.
In the system, we call it someone like a bull in the china shop. So you may. So it is true that
but there person. It's negative. Do you see that description? It's not a positive.
In the organizations do not like it. Because this trait is entrepreneurial and you have to have an entrepreneurial setup supporting it because organizations would not like that trait.
But all the companies now are adopting deep dives, sandpits, etc., to encourage entrepreneurship and challenge ways of doing business right now. Simple little things, and they've been around for ages. The suggestions box, you can put things anonymously, but all companies encourage disruption and innovation.
That's what you hear. They're encouraging. They say that they're encouraging entrepreneurs. But the reality is, and that's where I kind of agree.
So that is, you see, Malak. Some organizations are doing it very successfully. The YouTubes, the Facebooks, and
the Amazons,
how they're doing it. What they're doing differently is they are constantly working on alignment and engagement. See, if I define alignment and engagement is the logic and structure through which you allocate resources. And engagement is the byproduct of good leadership. Engagement happens when there is a dialogue in the company. Yeah. So a dialogue is actually, Socrates say that dialogue is a frame of mind. It's not a means of communication. If you look into the Greek, this is a Greek word. It has Greek roots. Dia means concepts or coming up with assumptions, and logos means flowing concepts. So dialogue is flowing assumptions, flowing concepts. And in dialogue, no one wins. Dialogue is a frame of mind where everyone is a winner. You're not going in with a debating mindset. So it comes down to the culture of the organization, and that culture is shaped by engagement and alignment constantly. Not every organization is able to do it. But some big tech organizations have successfully done it, and they therefore promote innovation. And
have they? Is it that they're successful? Is it because they've been able to implement those entrepreneurial type of people? Because that's the reason for their success.
That's right. But you got to be again very careful. I'll give you an example. I was listening to Jeff Bezos on one of his YouTube channels, and Jeff is saying that I can come up with 100 ideas per minute, and I have a whiteboard in my office and it is littered with new ideas. But then one of my executives came and he said, he's been a coach and mentor to me, and he said, Jeff, you are the biggest threat to Amazon.
Wow.
Because you are coming up with this number of ideas, which is creating a blockage. It is creating a process, a bottleneck where ideas are not being implemented, and you're creating a graveyard of ideas. The response from Jeff Bezos was really interesting. He said, I paused giving ideas, but I didn't discourage myself from coming up with those ideas. I still was coming up with those ideas, and I started building up the capability of the organization that can now absorb those ideas and work it out at the speed at which I'm throwing.
And it has to be an evaluation of all of those ideas,
absolutely.
right? What I love now, coming from a design background in my undergraduate in product design, that design thinking, systems thinking, I was doing 40 years ago. Now it seems to be a buzzword. And for people like me from the design industry, looking at big organizations trying to implement design thinking, systems thinking, says, well, if you haven't been doing that, what have you been doing? Right? Because it's absolutely essential to put people, you never know when you have these sort of workshops and creativity days, is who's got the best idea. Nobody owns a great idea, right? But a well-managed workshop and process that you go through will draw those great ideas based on a particular challenge from all sorts of individuals, but then you need to evaluate them.
Yeah. And I mean, so as an entrepreneur, I believe obviously in ideas, but you can have a brilliant idea, but to commercialize and implement, it's a completely different ball game. We can all come up with brilliant ideas, but actually to get something, a tangible product or service, is a completely different.
We constantly say the desirability, viability, feasibility framework, where you may come up with something which is very interesting, may have desirability,
but no market
may not be, may not be feasible or viable. It may not add any value.
But Jeff Bezos is in a position to make that change. So he can come up with ideas and he can create.
See, at the end of the day, it is not about ideas. It is about, again, capability that he was able to
He was
build.
able to do it.
He was able to do it. Yeah. And the way, if you now look back at Amazon, we all know how Amazon operates. Just look how much tech integration they have.
Yes.
But we always talk about Bezos and Zuckerberg and Richard Branson. These are people, ironically, these are people that fell out of university, right? But
they went to top universities, though.
Yeah. But it's the other individuals. You know, it's always. But we always talk about the big names, the Magnificent Seven, always mentioned. But there's this tranche of fantastic companies with fantastic people in them, with fantastic ideas, and they're the ones that we want to approach.
Absolutely.
So the sort of leadership programs that we have, it's about finding those individuals, and if we can.
Finding what the individuals who are already successful.
No, the ones who have the ideas that maybe don't get that opportunity to talk about and showcase them.
But they don't get the opportunity because of the structure, not because of the skills that they have.
In the big organizations, for sure.
Roger, so everything you're saying kind of ticks the boxes, and we hear it all the time from training companies, from universities themselves, and so it seems like you're doing all the right things, but the reality, if I go back again to the data, shows that the system is failing. There must be something wrong that we're doing.
Well, I'd like to think that data doesn't include the work of the universities. Yeah. The sort of competency mapping that we're doing, the journey that we're having, the trust that we build within those companies. Some of the organizations that we're working with, we've already, since the 3.5 years I've been with the University of Birmingham, I've had a 3-year relationship with organizations, and that relationship will go on into the future. So we understand the business.
Yes.
The academics understand the business. We understand their challenges. We know the levels of competency within the individuals, and we'll work with them on a journey, taking them forward and addressing some of those challenges so they can apply the expectations of the UAE through some of these strategies around digital transformation and improve their businesses and make them more efficient.
But, I mean, organizations have to send their staff to training anyway. It's part of the system. It's just like the universities themselves, they send their own staff to training. A lot of it is online and completely useless, completely useless. They've got this now new system. I don't know if University of Birmingham has, but where it's all online and you can just fast forward it. I'm sure no one even goes through this kind of the training programs that is mandatory. And so it's just because they come back to you doesn't mean that you're really transforming their staff.
MOOCs, right? Those massive online open access programs. Golly, I could do LinkedIn have 25,000 of them. Coursera have 16,000 of them at the last count. Yes, you can probably scroll forward. Yes, you'll get a certificate at the end of it. And for some people, a certificate is all they want, right? But if you can get through to those people and those organizations where they want to build up their competency and their skills, and the certificate just becomes part of the outcomes for it, then the universities go much deeper than that. We're not interested in just providing a course 2 hours and then that's it. It's 2 hours is start of that journey. So I probably wouldn't deliver a course for you if you were only going to come for 2 hours. I wouldn't be interested because we need to understand you, the challenges you face, understand you on an individual level, and develop programs with LSC and Imran and his team to develop those skills.
But how does the University of Birmingham train their staff? Do you use those online short courses that
at an individual,
individual?
I'm not involved with the HR side of things. And of course, those sort of courses probably are available to people. And for some, they'll be motivated by that. But for the vast majority of them, they'll be motivated by skills that they can demonstrate and apply in their daily jobs. The certificate is not that important piece of paper that it used to be.
See, Malak, in my view, you got to see it from a bird's eye view. There are various layers to it. The layer that you were talking about targets skill development, and it does the job. It helps you get the skills. But the journey doesn't stop there. You having the skill doesn't necessarily mean it would translate into performance. Where organizations get stuck is performance. And performance is about knowledge, and it is about development. So again, there are two stages of performance. At the very senior level, which Roger is talking about with the senior executives, knowledge is usually not the problem. It is actually context and development that is the problem. And that is defined by capability. So you have skills, then you have competencies, and then you have the capability. You may be a very competent person. I'll give you an example. I've been driving for 20 years of my life, right? I'm very competent. I don't have any black records. I drive really well. I have no accidents. Nothing wrong. When I came to UAE, I could not drive because I am competent. I don't have the capability to drive in this context.
That's an excellent example.
Capability is context driven. And as LSC, I am allergic to this word training.
But how do you develop those skills then? How do you train the executives?
So
as
first
LSE?
of all,
because it's context. So what do you do? Put them into various environments?
No. So first of all, this word training is directly linked to skills. I have been trained at the academy. I'm a former military officer, and at academies we train. But at the very senior level, you don't train. You don't even educate them. The moment you say we are educating the executives, they'll take it as an offense because they are CEOs, CTOs, COOs. Do they still need education? They don't. They need capability. Capability is where you are bringing first of all, very niche understanding of what are the needs that they're trying to solve. And then you are doing two-step combination. You're bringing an evidence-based approach from a university like Birmingham, and you're putting an expert who really has the scars and has seen it through. It's a combination of the two with the right expertise that can then steer the direction for the executive. Only someone who has been there, done it, and has seen the real scars is the person who can help you do it.
Let's take that. So that's the instructor.
Facilitator.
Facilitator. So these facilitators must be highly experienced individuals and have gone through industry. Why would they go back to a low-paid job? This
is not low paid. This is really premium.
Yeah,
facilitation is an art. So that is where I said not all academics are into this space. They can not be in this space because majority of the time academics just have academic background. That is where you would need practitioners.
But would you accept, Roger, what do you think? Because a university, from as an academic myself, I know universities they cannot afford these top type of facilitators. No way.
True, but it's the mutual benefit that we have, the collaboration that we have. We know that the brand of the university brings huge amount of strength and status when we're reaching out and responding to RFPs here. And the academics have a role to play. These are very knowledgeable people. The challenge with the academics is they just don't have time. They're busy people. They're busy doing their teaching. They're doing their research. And not everybody is competent and comfortable being in front of leaders, particularly at a sort of C-suite level. They're used to a sort of, certainly an undergraduate, young, masters, mature, usually people in employment. C-suite, less so. So I think finding the right people with the skills and the competency and the aptitude to deliver the programs, supplemented by all the skills and the facilitators with Imran and his team, you have a good group of people there who have credibility and the knowledge and the capability to deliver.
That is key.
And Malak, from commercial sense, do not confuse it with an MBA program.
Yeah.
The pricing levels are completely different. When you are doing this kind of activity with an organization, that is why often clients ask us that because they're comparing us with training institutions and the pricing with training institutions. This is a completely different tier.
Yeah,
pricing is premium.
Pricing. Have you found that a challenge in this in this region?
Not with the right clients. You got to have the right clients, but this is not for everyone. Because very difficult for people to understand the difference between training and then capability development. And I'm pretty sure Birmingham doesn't work with every request that they get. They pick the ones that they believe would be able to implement what they're offering.
And those organizations that now trust us, they trust the university because of its brand, the commitment it's made to being in the UAE. We're here and we're here to stay. And we have that civic mission to support people.
As a UK university, have you found a difference in culture or delivery here in the UAE and across the region?
Not particularly. In competency levels, I would say...
Hunger is more, in my view.
Sorry?
Hunger is more from
Hunger is more, yeah. And that's driven from the top.
Yes.
Right? That's driven from the top. We don't have that same dynamic, I think, in the UK, the perception of the government in a democracy versus the autocracy. Sheikh Mohammed and Sheikh Hamdan are hugely respected here, and everybody wants to achieve and everybody wants to impress them. What's great here that often motivates a lot of the public sector organizations is the Dubai Government Excellence Awards program. That's a sort of recommendation, an awareness of the training and development and innovation within those organizations.
But in terms of your design, the way you design your programs, is it not bespoke to this area or
They're context driven, particularly in the types of challenges that they face.
Are there any particular examples you can share?
For example, we have been working with a big conglomerate from Saudi, a dairy company. And on the program, we would be using case studies which are very Saudi specific, which are related to either or the food industry within the kingdom. For example, even coffee. Arabs love coffee. So some of the case studies that we brought in were related to coffee, and then we changed scenarios in it. And
so it's about engagement.
It is about engagement. It is about engagement. And it is about very much context-specific engagement. In some of the organizations where we are working, taking it to even the next level, is where organization doesn't have to send participants to us, or we send our facilitators to the organization, which changes the dynamics. Because when we are saying that, look, we have to understand your problems, still you are sending your participants to us. Doesn't work that way. So in the first instance, it is our facilitators who would go to the organization and do a kind of ethnographic study. They're engaging with the participants, but at the same time, they're observing the culture, they're observing how work gets done. And that makes a huge difference, Malak.
So how do you get feedback? Take us through your feedback process.
Our feedback, you see, everything that we talk about, we say we would help you move the dial. It would have an impact on the ROI. So our feedback is very real. And the reason it is real, because every time we are developing the capability is linked to the need of the organization. It is a live project. I'm not talking about challenges or dummy projects that you create on programs. No, this is a life transformation project
So
inside
give us
the organization.
just a bit more detail so we can understand.
One of the clients we worked in Saudi, and during the program announcement, once the program was delivered within 9 months, they confirmed that our initiative was able to help them achieve 1 million Saudi riyal movement on the dial just through the intervention which was delivered by London Strategy
That's
Centre.
excellent. Yeah.
So
you
it
can
is
see that fee. It's not the
every
participant.
time. It is not the. It is every time. Very context.
It's the organization.
It is the organization.
Yeah.
It is.
It is real tangible financial outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of these programs fail, because what we are used to is you get feedback as soon as you complete the workshop or the training. Participants are sent over these questionnaires. Has it been, useful? Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's excited.
Checkbox activity.
But actually, participants are. It's true. I'm not questioning their views. In many cases, yes, they are actually very excited and fulfilled in terms of what they've been through. But the actual, should we really be getting feedback from the participant? Or should we be doing what you're doing at LSE, is going back to the organization and actually checking, has there been any tangible, and most importantly, tangible financial outcome? But to do that, it's going to take time though, isn't it? It's
so
not gonna...
the real thing is that you can't do it if your training is not really linked to the organization's needs.
Yes.
You can't really do it. And many entities struggle with it, and they have many models. There's a Kirkpatrick model for impact assessment. Historically, industry has continued to struggle with identification of ROI, and there is no measure through which you can really pinpoint and identify and say, look, this is the impact we have been able to create. How can you exclude that and say, look, our program helped you do this? If anyone is saying that, that's wrong. Unless and until you have really connected it back to the organizational problems where you're tracking the ROIs, and then you can clearly see these were the steps that were taken on the program, and this helped you translate.
I would challenge some of the. It has to be about ROI. Right?
Okay. It has to be ROI.